I'm the person who has seen this show before. I'm a person who's never watched an anime. Hero Babble, we are Hero Babble. Hero Babble, we are Hero Babble. Hey, welcome back to the long-awaited, long-lauded, much-anticipated episode of the HiroBabble podcast. I am Michael, the guy who has seen this show before.
And I am Spencer, the guy who has also seen this show before. Hey,
wait a minute.
I have seen one anime.
Well, two now, I guess.
Two now, yeah, spoilers.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
have seen a second mech anime that will soon be released.
Yeah, it's a great one. We think you guys are going to really dig it. But for those of you who are new, which I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say that's a lot of you, we're HiroBabble. The kind of goal of this podcast is me being lucky enough to share anime with my buddy Spencer, who has not seen much of anything, and I have seen quite a bit. I am no know-it-all, but I like to think I know my stuff, and ultimately the real joy of this whole show comes from getting to compare and contrast thoughts from someone who has seen it before to someone that hasn't. So whether you're a returning listener or first time, thanks so much for joining us. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, I'm glad to be back. We've been out of work here on HiroBabble podcast for honestly about 3 years. So it's pretty cool to be back. We've been going through a lot of ideas of kind of how to bring it back, what we wanted to do, and we are really excited to bring you guys more content, more HiroBabble. Like we said, this is really a passion project of Michael having that outlet to be able to talk to somebody, to just gush to somebody about anime. And I'm the person, like, I've seen a few choice episodes. Like, I blockbustered Pokemon 2000 on VHS.
Great movie.
And
that's my favorite of the trilogy.
Yeah, I know. Because of that, I'm like, well, yeah, I think like Mew and Mewtwo are kind of my favorite Pokemon.
Wait.
I think, isn't that Pokemon 2000?
No, Pokemon 2000 was the one with Lugia and the legendary birds.
That's the cool water one.
Yes, Pokemon
What's
movie,
the one
though,
with Pokemon the movie? So
yeah.
that's the VHS.
Mm-hmm.
So see, my
great.
one thing I've seen before, I wasn't even really correct on.
No, but hey, frankly, it all kind of blurs together. So I think you can take a mulligan on that one.
It does. I will say I have seen that water one. When you said that, that did ring a bell to me. I can picture a big Pokemon coming out of the ocean.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great.
And I think I've seen enough of Dragon Ball to kind of know some of the characters in Dragon Ball Z a little bit, but like we're talking, couldn't tell you a single plot thread. Just kind of know the characters. So that's kind of all of the Japanese influenced animation that I've really been a part of. So for me to go on this journey was really, everything is truly brand new, and to start off with a show like Evangelion was incredible, because it is highly lauded, but it's also really fascinating because it's got a really almost like dark depth to it that, like, it certainly caught me off guard how deep the story went, how difficult some of the storylines are, not like to follow, but like difficult to watch. They're talking about things like depression and death, and they're not just out frolicking and fighting and thinking it's fun and cool. It's like a very deep thing, and as the show goes on, it just stops pulling any punches from that. So it was really opened my eyes to what could be possible with this medium, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And I would even say at the time it aired, for Japanese and Western and European audiences. This show was groundbreaking in so many ways. I think it was coming kind of at the, I don't know if it would be classified as like the tail end or maybe kind of the height of the mecha genre and its run, but to have something that really leaned into the kind of like coolness that the mecha anime genre brought, only to then turn it on its head and really just expand on what is ultimately a character study throughout the entire cast of trauma, agency. How do we navigate feelings of self-doubt, and do we repress them? How do we form relationships when we don't think we're worthy of them? It's all of these really heavy things pushed through the vessel of a 14-year-old who ultimately just has to get in the damn robot.
Agreed.
Like, if you want to boil it down to that, but
no, yeah, I agree with you, dude. That is a good distillation of kind of the show. I think, a lot of people, a lot of our returning listeners are very curious. How has my life changed since watching this show? And I think, what's happened to me is that I notice like anime things now. Like
yeah,
when I was telling you before we started, like I'll be going to bed and I'll close out a YouTube or Netflix or whatever I had on. And just by chance, like for some reason our TV's been stuck on Cartoon Network, which sometimes like Bob's Burgers will be playing.
great
And
show.
then but every once in a while they'll have like an ad for some like new anime coming out. Or they'll do like an ad for probably one that's been running for a while that they're showing as part of their kind of Toonami thing.
Yeah.
But I'll kind of see that now and be like, oh, like what's this one about? Whereas
Okay.
before I'd be like I would have no interest in considering it because I would feel so out of the loop on that. But now I'm kind of like, oh, well, now that I've completed one, what does this one look like? And dude, I forget what it is. It's like something about death, and it's like this chick that's sitting on a rooftop, and it's got a really long-winded name, and who knows what it is. But I
Yeah,
don't know. I
that's
don't know.
so many. I was
I
trying
know.
to
I
think.
know. That didn't narrow it down. A lady on rooftop in rain. I mean, yeah. Um, but I mean that's kind of fun, So it's been cool. I've also gotten a handful of memes and references that I understand now, having seen this show.
I love that.
Or like alternatively, I'll now like when I go to a comic show or something, because I'm really more of a comic book guy, I guess, for the people that don't know.
Hmm.
I'll now recognize cosplays that I would not have known. I would have known that they're an anime cosplay, but I would not have known at all what they're from. And now I'll be like, oh, that's Ray. Oh,
Oh,
that's
nice.
Asuka. Oh, that's yeah. So that's been fun.
That's great, man. I mean, ultimately, that's kind of the really great part, I think, about watching anime just in general, especially over the past, oh hell, like 7 or 8 years, as it's
Yeah.
really started to flow more into the mainstream. Just being able to look at the landscape, and it's kind of like, for the longest time it was this tight knit group where a lot of inside jokes and things like that, but because of how accessible anime is now, it's really a cool uh, change of pace to where now you get to be in on the joke, and all you had to do was just watch a show, and then you can start to banter with others like, oh, did you like that show? And it's really great how those connections can really build off of having just seen one show.
Well,
And
yeah,
so,
dude. One thing that I'm finding, and this is true in anything, any sort of fandom, right? There's people that take things really, really seriously, right? They need everything
mhm.
to be grounded. They need every anime to be the Dark Knight, right? And then there's certain people that are fine poking fun at something that they love, or they just want to enjoy the experience, right? So they're fine with like, I guess I don't really have a Batman equivalent, but like they're happy just to be there. And I think like in comic books, at least, there's people that really want dark and gritty Batman, right? But then there's people that just want to be wild. Like if they see Batman punching an alien in the face in space and in an adventure that's like out of continuity, they're happy with that, right? And I think that it's important, as I've learned in this short anime journey, as short as it's been, that in the anime genre, this is something that was new to me. Like there really is so many genres within it. Like there are animes like, I've just vaguely seen you, like there's ones that, they're playing volleyball, right? And the whole thing is about like competition.
Haikyuu.
Yeah,
yes.
and like so I know nothing about it, so give me a grace.
Yeah,
but like
absolutely. It's incredible.
I assume that like the weight of a show like that is different than a weight of watching End of Evangelion. Like where there's just dead bodies everywhere and suicide constantly talked about and vaginas coming out of foreheads and like, it's just there's levels to this shit.
Yeah.
And I think that what I've come to appreciate is that it seems like the fan base as a whole doesn't necessarily gatekeep one or the other. They can all exist. They can all coexist. And I don't know that exists in some other fandoms. Like I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I know that the Star Wars fandom can be one of the most tumultuous fan bases. Like it's crippling to the fan base sometimes how serious people take everything, myself included. I might be the worst. But
no way.
No, but I do think that somehow, like in this anime genre, like you were saying, people will be like, "Oh, have you watched this? Have you watched that?" It's like people are fine watching a show about like, some pirates or Sailor Moon or whatever. Once again, I can't speak to the depth on any of those shows. I see Sailor Moon and I just assume it's just like sexy, kind of like planetary babes. I have no idea what that show's about. But there could be serious depth there, and I'd love to find out. But I don't know. Is that something that you feel like is true? Like within the anime fandom, they're pretty accepting of all genres.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I think I think as social media is kind of my frame of reference here, and this is maybe going to date me a little bit, but I think as communities start to form around hobbies, interests, likes, dislikes, I think what I've started to see, and again, this kind of exists in a vacuum, and this isn't me painting with a broad brush, but I do think that some people really identify strongly with certain shows, and whether it's like, oh, I love the action in this show. It's the best action anime. Oh, I love shonen anime. This is my jam. I love slice of life. I do think that there is a lot of, if it were a Venn diagram, I think a lot of people would overlap. I think maybe some people, for shows that resonate with them very strongly, or series or characters from those series, it can get very like fine-tuned to the point of, this is my thing. Like I am the fan. Granted, I think you'll run into that with anything, and I don't even think it's out of malice, but I would say generally, I don't think it's very gatekeepy. I mean, everyone's entitled to an opinion, but opinions have nuance, and something that may be jived for. I mean, heck, even if whoever's listening were to go back and watch our HiroBabble episodes, there are several episodes in particular where Spencer and I veer greatly from one another on whether it be our overall liking of the episode or our interpretations of it. And I think that can coexist. So kind of that was a bit of a tangent, but I think ultimately I do agree that it's not very gatekeepy. I think the further down the rabbit hole you get with any fandom community, things maybe get a little more intense. But I also think that it comes from a place of passion and care
Yeah.
and a respect for a medium that I think for the longest time was rejected by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so
That's a good point.
so all that to say, I think that as it's become more mainstream, the gates have kind of burst wide open, and that's, I think, great, not just for people to experience something they maybe wouldn't have watched or looked at otherwise, but everyone wins, right? The more popular something becomes, the more fans it gets, the more localizations we get, the more theater showings we get for limited run movies and all that good stuff. So it's a win-win. But I'm glad that you felt that, where it's not very gatekeepy, because I would echo that sentiment.
Because I certainly feel like the crowd of ladies with swords standing on rooftops in the rain can somehow get along with the volleyball animes.
Oh yeah, ladies with swords standing in the rain. Oh, what is that,
dude? It's on Adult Swim. Toonami.
Akame ga Kill, maybe?
No. Dude, I swear it has death in the name. It's like death something. And then it has like a sub name, like a subtitle that's like West Brooklyn.
Oh, West Brooklyn.
I don't know that it's West Brooklyn, but
wow. Okay. Well, who knows? Maybe that'll get added to the list of shows we need to watch.
Dude, I know. I might just start watching it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been a bit of a hot minute since you and I have recorded something. You had made a really good point of kind of, introducing the new listeners and old listeners to us, what we're watching, what we're reading, what we're doing. Do you want to kind of kick that off?
Yeah. I think, for me, God, I was just trying to look up whatever that show is called, but there's so many and I just have no idea. So, I mean, really, the stuff that I've been into, I mean, I've been telling you, Fern, I did finish up the Spider-Man game on PS5, 100% of that. Spider-Man 2 is very, very good. Enjoyed that one a lot. That got me kind of back, falling in love with superhero stuff again. So then, of course, I replayed Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and now I'm playing through Arkham Origins. And, I've been kind of off Batman for a long time. Batman's kind of the character that drew me into comics, but I've kind of been off of him for a little while because I just haven't been able to get into those main titles in a long time, like Batman or Detective Comics. But I've been hitting it really hard, as you know, for like the last 4 years with kind of this new X-Men line.
Yeah.
And this rise and fall of the X-Men, they are finally sort of finishing up this era of X. And it's all coming to a close here in the next few months. So it's a little bit bittersweet. So I've been reading like up to 7 to 9 X-Men titles at a time. I've also been adding in, like, I've been reading Iron Man a little bit. Some Captain America right now has a new run by the guy that created Babylon 5. He's now writing Captain America and he's kicking ass.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. I've also been they've essentially rebooted the Ultimate Universe, which is like what created characters like Miles Morales.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that jump-started this whole line of X-Men books for the Krakoa era, he's started this new event called Ultimate Invasion, and spinning out of that is this new Ultimate Spider-Man, and there's an Ultimate Black Panther, and they're doing all kinds of cool stuff there that we can get into down the road if you want. But
yeah,
it's a good time. Like I have seemingly in the last 10 years sort of gone full, like from full DC at my start, from just Batman to then branching out to all DC, really sprawling. And then I've sort of slowly kind of let some Marvel stuff. And then I got really into the X-Men, and now I'm like full Marvel. And now I'm kind of whittling down again. So we'll kind of see how it evolves. But right now I've kind of fallen back in love with it from playing some of those games. And I've been buying some old 90s comics. And right now I'm reading some old like Jim Lee Fantastic Four stuff. So it's been a fun journey over the last few years, but yeah, it's pretty much been mostly X-Men centric for me.
Awesome. Are you going to check out that X-Men 97 show that's
Oh yeah.
to come out?
Yes, absolutely. When I am not bitching and moaning and complaining about new Star Wars, I'm watching the X-Men animated series on Disney Plus.
Awesome.
So I love that show. I mean, I'm a big fan of like all the DC shows of that time too, like the Batman animated series, Superman animated series, Batman Beyond, Justice
Oh,
League.
love Batman
So
Beyond.
yeah, dude. So the X-Men cartoon is incredible. And even the Spider-Man animated series from around that time is really good too. So yeah, I like all that stuff.
Awesome.
But yeah, what about you? Have you been reading any manga or watching any anime lately that
Oh yeah,
fancies you?
yeah. I've kind of been in the throes of it a little bit. Um, I'm really quick gonna look up the name of this author just because I would really hate to get the pronunciation wrong. But I've been on a major kick for just kind of reading series that aren't like a weekly serialized shonen chapter. Just kind of I like in terms of shonen manga, like every Sunday, I'm reading Sakamoto Days, which is phenomenal. I highly recommend anyone to check that out if you've even been remotely interested. Undead Unluck, Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, Mafuyuyu, and Kagura. Is it Kagurabashi? I should maybe, or Kagurabachi, I think is the correct terminology for that. Yeah, Kagurabachi. And so yeah, those are what I read like every Sunday when they come out. Every other Tuesday, Chainsaw Man comes out because that's still going. And then if I'm trying to think, is it bi-weekly or tri-weekly? But Kaiju number 8 is another great one. But yeah, this past year I've been reading a lot from Naoki Urasawa. He's done a lot of great series such as 20th Century Boys, Pluto, Monster, and right now I'm in the process of watching the Monster anime. But I've read 20th Century Boys, I've read Pluto, and I watched the anime on Netflix. Both are phenomenal. To kind of give you an idea, Spencer, of what genre he writes. It's a lot of suspense, a little bit of action, but a lot of mystery. He is phenomenal at kind of creating a world and layering it with twists around every turn. So you as the reader, you think you've kind of got it all figured out, and then all of a sudden, boom, he hits you with just a total out of left field zinger that flips the story on its head. Like it's really just exciting. Like it's a real page turner. I've also read PTSD Radio, which is I'd categorize it as like a horror anthology series. They're all short stories that are combined in these omnibuses that my wife got me for my birthday.
That's nice.
They're somewhat connected, but they're also pretty standalone. I enjoy them for what they are. I think they're pretty good. I'd recommend them if you're looking for just kind of like a little suspense in your life. What else have I read this year? Oh, I finally finished Goodnight Poon Poon. That's a very interesting take on a coming of age story that will have you cry, it'll have you laugh, it'll have you get angry. It's so well written, but it's I don't really want to dive too deep into it because it's really best experienced as with clean of a slate as you can. So yeah, that's in terms of reading. I'm watching the Monster anime. I've kind of been, I've watched Jujutsu Kaisen season 2. I've watched the Chainsaw anime as it came out. I'm watching Undead Unluck, Zombie 100. Shows that are kind of coming on. I watch them when they air in the various seasons, but I'm a little bit behind, just because my wife and I have been watching other shows and all that good stuff. But gaming wise, been playing. Last year was kind of my Remedy year, where I played through all of the Alan Wakes, including the recent Alan Wake 2. I played through all of Control in the DLC. Those are all phenomenal games. Final Fantasy 16, just incredible front to back. Hands down one of my favorite in the series.
Awesome.
I've started Spider-Man 2. It's a great game. I just need to put more time into it. But as of late, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, fantastic action RPG. Persona 3 Reload just came out. I've started it, and my goal is to actually finish it in a reasonable time frame. It took me like 3 years to finally finish Persona 5.
Congrats.
So I'm trying to be a little quicker on that. But and then I picked up the Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. I've been enjoying it. I know.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I feel like that game, that title got a lot of unnecessary hate prior to it even being released, just because it maybe wasn't the game that they wanted that studio to make, even though that studio's made nothing but absolute hits, including 2 Game of the Years in the last 3 games.
Yeah, I think it's some of the best character design and motion capture I've ever seen implemented in a game. It's fun to play. I love the traversal mechanics. I will say I can see the worry though, because I just don't know if it has legs as a live service title.
Sure.
I'm about three quarters through the campaign, and I just am like, who knows? Like we'll see if it's gonna be worthwhile. But I'm digging it. And then Helldivers 2 just came out, and I have been loving that. Spencer, I know you just picked it up.
Yeah, thanks for your service.
Yeah, hey, yeah, anything for democracy and Super Earth, you know.
What's the name of your ship?
Oh, it's like the soul of, I think it's like the soul of freedom. Something like that.
Yeah, they're all so cheesy. Mine is the elected representative servant of the people or something. It's just like the longest possible.
I love that though. I think that's it. It's so great, like in universe too, of like kind of what to expect from a game like that.
Oh, okay. I did find the name of the anime that continually is on all the commercials.
Yes,
on Adult Swim. And I may butcher this. Keep in mind, complete noob here.
Yeah.
The main title is Demon Slayer, and then it says Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Entertainment District.
Yeah.
Entertainment District was what I was thinking said West Brooklyn.
Man. I would kill for a Demon Slayer spinoff in West Brooklyn. That would be incredible.
Dude,
that is a fantastic show, by the way. That season in particular, season 2, the Entertainment District. Ooh-wee! That is up there as one of my like all-time favorites. I love Demon Slayer.
That's awesome. Okay, well, cool. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the trailers have been cool.
Yeah.
I just sent you a picture of a comic book cover just for people that are anime fans that might be interested in comic books. Part of that Ultimate line I was telling you about, where they've rebooted it. If you don't know, the Ultimate Universe in comics is like Marvel's version of, we're going to completely reboot, but we're not going to do it to our mainline books. Just, they want to continue the continuity they've always had, but they also want to be creative, and they want to let their all-star creatives be creative. So the Ultimate line is a fresh start. So if you've never read Spider-Man, any Black Panther, X-Men, any of that stuff, it's a fresh start for you to read those. But there's a writer and artist named Peach Momoko that is working on Ultimate X-Men, and she is like a Japanese watercolor artist, and her stuff is absolutely incredible. So if you like kind of that manga look, she sort of threads that line between manga and Western comics with her watercolors, and she's writing and drawing Ultimate X-Men.
Oh,
And
nice.
I sent you
Okay.
that cover so you can kind of see what her style looks like. But
Yeah. Where did you send it?
I just sent it. I just texted it to you.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. It must not have loaded, but I'll take a
That's
look.
fine.
Either way, though, the description of that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So I just figured maybe people listening might be interested in that. But yeah,
Absolutely.
man. Well, do you want to get into Evangelion a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. I think we've sufficiently filled the people in. So yeah, let's
Yeah.
get to the meat and potatoes, if you
So
will.
yeah, so I guess to recap where we left off here. We watched the last two episodes. The build up from like episode 19 to episode 24 was unbelievable. Firing on all cylinders.
Oh
I
yeah.
was I was like absolutely in love with this show, and then episodes the final two episodes basically pulled the rug out from under me, asked me to look inside myself, and I didn't like it. And I listened back to those episodes, and I
Yeah.
still believe, like, for a first-time viewer, I think all my points are valid. But I think I have a better appreciation now for it, and I even at the time I respected them for doing it, for doing what they were doing. But it's not what I really wanted to see. Like, I didn't feel like that's where the story was going.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I gave the final episode like a 3 out of 10.
Yep.
So I was not happy with how that finished. So End of Evangelion is sort of like this is they made this for me. You know, they made another version
Oh, believe
for
me, it was not just for you. it was
yeah.
it was for the audience at large because your sentiment was very much not in the minority when those episodes came out.
I will say, like, I having watched it again because I have watched this twice now. Fernie and I watched this actually together
Hmm.
about 3 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, and then we didn't get around to recording it, and then just got busy, and now here we are. So I watched it again, but I listened to our episodes, and I read kind of a synopsis of the show. I got refamiliar so that I would know like what characters are what.
Yeah.
I kind of read through my notes so that when I watched it, I had reference. And I rewatched it, and I gotta say, it's it still is not like the perfect, for me at least. It still is not like the perfect fix.
Yeah.
But I think it does a lot that I appreciate. But I
Okay.
almost feel like it made me appreciate the other ending more. so,
Is it because
so
of how just harrowingly depressing
I
the
think I think here's what happened, and I guess, this is kind of, we're just in the discussion portion of the pod now, but
yeah.
I think that what happens is you watch the television show and you've spent, you know, 15 hours, 16 hours of your life just doing nothing but watching the show. We talked about the show. I mean, at that point, we've spent a lot of time
Yeah.
invested in this world. To get to the final episode and have it be just like inside Shinji's mind and him sort of coming to grips with the fact that like he has a problem, but like his family and friends can be there for him, and them sort of, as you would put it before, like it's them congratulating him for like coming to realization that he can be loved. And I think
Yeah.
like there is something incredible about that and incredibly powerful about that. They went for that. When you
Yeah.
watch End of Evangelion, they give you all the stuff you thought you wanted. Like they
Yeah.
give you the amazing fight sequences,
Oh my God. Yeah.
explosions, just like, they give you everything you want. But you don't get the semi-positive resolution. You end up getting this like it just keeps getting worse the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like the best part, the best mental point you're at watching this movie is watching a 14-year-old like jack off to another comatose 14-year-old, and it
Yeah.
just keeps getting worse. And you're just kind of like, I felt myself at the end of this movie like wanting to look away because I just felt so bad for Shinji.
Yeah.
And they just make a lot of decisions in this that are polarizing, to say the least. What hit me with your opening salvo?
Yeah, the way that I would kind of distill the TV ending down is hope, and then I think End of Evangelion distilled down is despair. I think there was an interview done with Hideaki Anno where he was asked kind of his inspiration behind the TV ending and End of Evangelion, and it's well documented that during the creation of this show, he was battling with severe depression, and he was seeking, help and assistance, and he found a book on psychology that really kind of broke down this idea of, you have to know yourself so you can take care of yourself, and that's a line that's used in the final episode of the television ending. And I think what's really powerful about that is in End of Evangelion, we basically watch at every turn Shinji refuse to accept his flaws. And I think what's so powerful about the television ending for me is, granted, it takes him a while to do it, but when he finally kind of accepts the faults and the insecurities and the shortcomings that he has, and how his prior inability to recognize those was impacting his relationships that he was trying to form, the congratulations he gets is him being recognized for taking that first step, kind of like you said. Whereas here, he is choking Asuka, who is saying basically the same things that are being said to him in the television ending, but rather than accept what's being said to him, he rejects it. And him strangling Asuka is him trying to kind of silence that urge to reflect inward. It, like, throughout the whole movie, he's saying, somebody help me. At first it's like, Asuka, help me. Misato, help me. Rei, help me. Dad, help me. All these people, help me. And how can it's like that phrase, how can you help someone if they refuse to help themselves? And right. This movie is such a great encapsulation of that. It's so rare that I think we get to see in any media, kind of like in video games you see it, right? Like the route A, the good route B, the bad route, whatever. But to see a creator like Anno really commit to both of these endings and really not pulling any punches, I think is so powerful, because I think a lot of people, especially as this show has aged, can really relate to that divide that you feel internally when you are trying to process very complex feelings, feelings of self-doubt and insecurity, and how do I fit into all of this? It really can go either way, and I think that the urge that Shinji feels in both the television show and the movie to form these relationships is deeply rooted in, like, God, if I can just connect with people, then I'm safe. I can do this. But yeah, where the movie differs is, and Asuka says it a couple times about how his perception of her is framed in, misogyny, and how he just views her as like a sexual pleasure. And that's reflected in the hospital scene. I think that scene, while of course very, I don't know, tough to kick off a movie with, really
that
though, I think
scene is like, we'll get into it more. Keep going on your point.
Well, I mentioned that specifically because I think it's a real great example of the escapism that I think Shinji is so desperately trying to find. He's looking for an out, and it's like, oh well, maybe if I just get this release, then I'll be fine. And then he kind of looks down and he says, I'm the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
the recognition that the fact that he's able, I think, to recognize that. Obviously, it's not. I'm not looking to justify the action, but what I'm more so trying to get at is Shinji is fully cognizant of these things, but it's like I think it makes sense to start the movie off with that because it's all downhill from there. You know, he continually is just rejecting the surroundings that he finds himself in, whether he's in the basic nerve, in the actual Eva itself, when he's being strung up on the laser cross in the sky.
Yeah.
You know, I think in a lot of ways, that starting scene kind of just kicks off kind of where this movie is going to go. But it serves a greater purpose. That said, it's a very graphic way to kick something off. But all in all, to kind of go back, you know, that was a full salvo, as you said. But I really think it's so great to kind of see what is the dark yang to the light yin of both of these endings, because you cannot have the congratulations without the choking of Asuka, who is who is telling Shinji what he needs to hear, but he doesn't want to hear it, because if he hears it, that means that he has to admit that he needs to change, or he needs to fix himself, and he just can't do it. So, you know, the human instrumentality project, in a sense, like, you know, the television show kind of frames it as like, you know, his mom's grand vision, and kind of what Gendo was hoping for is that mankind can stand to benefit from understanding one another. Whereas, you know, Shinji rejecting that human instrumentality in this movie just kind of shows how isolated we can be when we refuse to look inward at ourselves, and in turn reach out to those we want to connect with. You know, you can't. I know I said it earlier, but it really is like, can't love others till you love yourself, which could very much be a Hobby Lobby signage that you hang in white suburbia kitchen. But I do think that, and I don't say that to be reductive, I just think that that's a really easy way to kind of frame the two. So overall, I love this movie. I don't love it, I think, as much as the original ending, because it doesn't make you feel great. But I think there is a lot to appreciate about the artistic motivations and drive behind it. So I am a huge fan of this. And if you're listening to this right now and you've never seen it, just put a little trigger warning. There is a lot of graphic scenery, imagery.
It's a very adult movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's almost like unjustifiable at times. Like it is justifiable because they are not doing it to be. They're not doing it to over-sexualize the characters. They're not doing it to be gross. They are doing it to serve a purpose that is actually within the character and the confines of the show. Like they are doing a great job at that.
Yeah.
But it's like this movie straight up has very heavy stuff. A lot of death that is very realistic death. A lot of killing. A lot of nudity, gore, a lot of body horror.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's straight up is just vaginas appearing out of foreheads. There's sex, there's masturbation, and it's mostly about 14-year-olds. So it's kind of like it is like there's a lot there that's more than what you might come to expect from, you know, a mech anime TV show.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I've only seen one other one, but I can say that when you watch this show from start to finish, it is all earned. It's not like they're doing anything here that is just completely distasteful out of nowhere to be to be pigs. It is at times I sometimes feel weird about it. Like there are times where the show was very artistic about it, and then all of a sudden in this movie it's like we're just getting full nudity out of our main characters. And it's just kind of like I don't know that we had to do that.
Yeah.
But it is fine. But it's because they aren't doing it in a way that's like, even when they reveal like that opening scene in the hospital where they like turn Asuka over and Shinji like sees her boobs. Even there, it's not necessarily like an over sexualization of the character, because while Shinji does come to climax in that scene, it is showing you the absolute disgust.
Yeah.
It's to get you from point A to point B with a purpose. It's not like egregious, and I think that's like the only thing that gives it a pass. But anyways, I just say that because you're right. Like, you would definitely watch this because it is a very polarizing movie, but it is also like you do have to kind of go into it understanding that like this isn't going to be just an awesome fight after awesome fight. It's like there's a lot of blood and a lot of death and a lot of nudity, and it is just kind of out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's, I mean, very much sets a tone. Speaking of which, I mean, things kind of go to hell very, very quick in what's titled episode 25.
Right.
We start with that whole scene in the hospital. And from there, I mean, it seemed like business as usual for Nerve. It picks up where episode 24 left off, where things are kind of set in motion for Gendo to finally, bring in the third impact and initiate the human instrumentality project. Except in this movie, Cell is absolutely not going to have that. And I meant to ask, did you kind of get a good grasp on the differences of intent behind starting the third impact between Gendo and Cell?
I thought that I did. Maybe I was missing something. I kind of thought that I did.
What's your thought on it? I only say this just because it wasn't until like my second rewatch that I kind of put together where they differed.
Well, maybe I don't know the differences, but I mean, I guess what I pick up is, I mean, you've got, I guess, this group, Cell or Zele, kind of I don't know what the hell they call it.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many different pronunciations.
Agreed.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, so I feel like all of those guys, their goal is this human instrumentality or whatever they call it, is to basically take all of the God, what's the word they use for humanity? The Lilin? Is that what it is? Lilin?
Lilith?
Lilith? Is that what they're calling humanity? So basically they are trying to take all of the human souls together to form one being, to basically come together as one with the intent that, like, I don't know if they're trying to like restart with that or what their long-term goals are. The human instrumentality thing is something that I really struggled with at the end of the show. Yeah. Because I felt like they didn't sow the seeds of what that was early on, and then at the end they kind of like rushed that being like a major thing. And then it just kind of like things happen so fast with like Adam and everything, that it just kind of, even though that's like the crux of the show, it's like it's not as easily explained as I want it to be. Yeah.
I mean, the long and short of it is just that it's the fusion of humanity into one. The goal of Cell, pick your poison, is they think that humanity as it currently exists is insufficient. And so their goal is through human instrumentality to evolve to that next step, to kind of ascend to that, to become a new being entirely.
But there is like some historical precedent to give them that idea, I guess. Like, because
Well,
they
that's
aren't
what the
just like
angels are.
crazy. Yes, right. Like the angels and like the spear of Longinus and all that kind of stuff. Like there is like these ancient artifacts and these beings that prove to them that there needs to be some ulterior motive happening to like fix things.
Yeah. Whereas Gendo, his whole goal, his whole Gendo, anyways, his whole goal is to initiate that because of his wife's dream of
Right.
uh, mankind being better to one another when they can understand each other. However, it's ultimately selfish because he just wants to
Yes.
see Yui again. And it's for that whole soul motivation that Rei even exists. She's a tool
Right.
to kick off the instrumentality.
It's
And that's
tough to
kind of.
know.
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, like, it's tough to know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, because like it's all kind of up to interpretation
Yeah.
and like and I guess they're all, for one, all the Zele guy, like they're all being selfish, but it seems like those guys are at least all connected on working towards one singular goal for the benefit of humanity. They just see it differently than other groups. But like he is involved with that group directly, but he purely wants that to see his wife again.
Yes. Absolutely. And I will say one thing I really appreciated about this movie is that Gendo, I mean, he kind of gets his just desserts a little bit. I think,
Yeah.
albeit while maybe started from pure intentions, he just wanted to see his wife again. I mean, the isolation that he put Shinji through is really kind of a catalyst for Shinji's state of being. And there's that scene where right before he gets his head ripped off, where Yui, Rei, and I think it's Kaoru, all basically, or it's mainly Yui who says it, but like lays into him for his abandonment and his failure to really bond with Shinji.
Yeah. Yep.
In pursuit of his own selfish desires.
He does apologize for
He
that,
does. That is true.
which I thought that was actually a really nice moment because
Yeah.
you do sort of view him as like the enemy inside the whole time.
Yeah.
So to have him show at least like, hey, like, I was trying to do this for the right reasons, and I'm sorry that I neglected you. Like that was wrong.
Yeah.
I see that now. It's kind of slightly redeeming for his character, which was nice to see.
Absolutely. But I realize that we have kind of jumped the shark a little bit. To rewind just a tad, I guess we didn't really jump the shark, so to speak. I mean, we're talking about kind of the abstract themes from both opposing parties, and that's what leads to everything going to shit. But let's talk Asuka and the the change of spirit and will that she has after being comatose at the start. What were your thoughts kind of on her? That it's really great. I mean, I'd hate to say it's not intentional because I think there's a lot of intent, but I think her ascension in Ava Unit 2 and that kind of brief, I don't know what to do, mommy help me, like whatever, and then how she kind of just snaps out of it and is like, oh yeah, I'm back. Like, you were with me the whole time, mom. Like, what were your thoughts kind of on that shift for her?
I can't remember if this movie is the reveal that Unit 2 is the soul of her mom.
I can't remember. I think they reveal it in episode 24.
Okay, but like late in the run.
Yes, because that's as she starts to have more of a breakdown. that's when we start to learn more about her backstory, where she gets this innate desire to be the best, to prove that she is worthy and is worth
Yeah.
keeping around. And it's all rooted in her mom. And then that's when she ultimately finds out that, oh my God, that's why I sync so well with this unit. It's my mom. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. I mean, seeing her break down. I mean, you when you see them all just be depressed and like I forget what she was chanting to herself, like I don't want to die or whatever. It was like really, it's like God, these guys have been through it.
Yeah.
But there's like a lot of respect, I think, for her because she, through it all, she is able to do what Shinji can't do, and that is like rise up in moments to at least like be what she needs to be for humanity. Like she's like the hero that we need, you know? And
Yeah.
Shinji's like just straight up unable to do that most of the time. Even though he's usually more successful. I
Yeah.
think that her attack on those
The artificial Avas.
the artificial Avas was unbelievable. Like the first one, I forget what the line is that she says, but she basically just runs up and pops the guy's head, and
Yeah.
it is freaking awesome. I enjoy how the show kind of they're like quote mechs, but they're not really. They're really like living things,
Yeah.
and they really start leaning into that more in the movie, and compared to like the first few episodes of the show.
Hmm.
And dude, her absolute decimation before she's eventually disemboweled
Yeah. Oh,
is incredible. Watching her tear through those is amazing. And if not for their like random resurrection.
yeah.
So yeah, rest in peace, Asuka.
Yeah. Yeah. Went down swinging, which,
And
what more can you hope for?
I know, and I kind of had forgotten actually from the first time that we watched this that Masato gets killed.
Yeah.
Like
Not
early.
before, not before giving Shinji a little kiss, though.
Yeah, what I didn't really know how I like I know I wrote down I said was that kiss weird? Like I didn't know how to feel about it cuz it is just like I get weirded out by the age that they're supposed to be,
Yeah.
but at the same time like they are all going through such trauma and she is not doing that romantically. She sort of is like she's like teaching him a life lesson there. And
Yeah.
she's always been able to walk that line with him like that and give him what he needs to like move forward. I don't even know that it really did in this case. I think long term it did, but at
Mm,
least immediately, I don't know that it really helped him.
For me, I interpreted that as, I mean, Misato's arc kind of is that she forms bonds through intimacy. Um,
Yeah,
and that is her way of deriving connection. And so I think with Shinji, that kiss was like her attempt at connecting to him. And even in that moment, Shinji rejected it. Yeah, he got kissed, but as he takes that elevator down, kind of like you said, we don't see him go, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go do it. I just got kissed. I'm gonna help. He doesn't. He
no,
he, if anything, is just, it kind of just puts him further in that hole of,
no. He
I'm
goes down
depressed.
there, he crouches down and keeps crying
Hmm.
while Asuka's being absolutely disemboweled. He
Yep.
then decides to finally fucking do something. And then he goes out there and sees her. And then he's even worse. It's just like,
Yeah.
that's where I'm saying, like, the mental state of his character at its best was jacking off to a comatose 14-year-old.
And what did he say right after doing that?
I forget, like, I hate myself or
No,
whatever.
no, he's like, I'm the
I'm
lowest of the
disgusting.
low.
I'm the lowest of the low. Yeah, that's right. And
And
he is.
and he is. And throughout the rest of the movie, I mean, he just continues that.
I also want to say I've been throwing around 14-year-old a lot. I understand that they're all 14,
Yeah.
like the kids, so it's different.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that. I'm not saying that Shinji's like 25 doing that.
Yes.
I just like
Yeah. No,
it.
no.
It
I
is
get what you're
just
saying.
like you're to me now as an adult. It's like I'm looking at a kid, looking at another kid it's in a comatose state, and it's supposed to be gross. That's why they did it, and I
They
understand that.
even frame it kind of like you said. It's not like overtly sexual, and
No, no, it's not.
they
It's
even
not.
frame it with like a trembling hand and like a
Yeah, they
kind of
do.
shaky cam, where it's like, oh my god, what have I done? You
They
know?
actually do it very well because they show him sort of really good emotion, and then they cut away from him. They show some monitors, some different things, and you can hear him kind of breathless,
Yeah.
and so you assume that he's still crying.
Hmm.
They like even that scene they did kind of like artistically. It's
Oh, he's crying.
yeah,
But
no, he is.
yeah,
Yeah, dude, it's yeah, Masato getting shot. That her speech to Shinji was excellent.
yes,
Yeah, unfortunately
really,
it
really
fell on deaf
incredible.
ears, but
Well, and that's just got as we kind of talk and break down the movie. I mean, think how many instances of people trying to get through to Shinji, to like they are extending a hand and saying, "Hey, I am, I'm here for you. Like you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and I recognize that, and it sucks, but you're not alone. We're
yeah.
here." But
So let me ask you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but he can't believe that. Like he can't believe that he has those connections because he thinks he's unworthy of them. But
Right. No.
anyways,
No. Nail on the head. Yeah. Absolutely. I was just gonna move to the next female death on the list,
oh yeah,
where Ritsuko. So she has a really interesting scene with Gendo,
yeah,
where Gendo is like now with Ray, and this is like the pivotal point. This is like the linchpin point of like the first episode where she confronts him with a
hmm,
gun because they've forgive me if I'm wrong, but they were kind of messing around on the side, right? Ritsuko and
yes,
Gendo.
they
Is it
were.
Ritsuko? Is that her name?
Yeah, Ritsuko.
Ritsuko. Yeah. They were kind
Yeah.
of messing around on the side, right?
Well, and he was also messing around with her mom.
Oh, who is now like the Magi or whatever, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
there's
should
like
I
this
should
cycle.
clarify. I don't actually. I can't remember specifically if Ritsuko and Gendo actually hook
I,
up.
I think they did. Well, for some reason, I think they did. I think she's ultra jealous of Ray, even in the show.
Oh, okay.
She's super jealous of Ray because he has started showing like affection for Ray because now we know what she's a clone of. Um, and so she is ultra jealous of that. I at least am interpreting it that way. Maybe I made all this up in my head. It's kind of a good juicy
No,
little storyline.
no, you're right. I just took a look at some past episode notes.
Yeah, I
They
thought that there
were
was
they
like
were
this.
romantically involved.
Yeah, which is sucks that he was with her mom. She knows that he did that to her mom, and she's doing that with him, while he
Yes.
ultimately doesn't give a fuck. He's only caring about one thing.
Yeah,
And
and it's using her as a pawn because that's his whole thing, right? Using people as he sees fit in an attempt to really get what he ultimately wants, and that's to see Yui. Um,
right.
because
So she
Ritsuko.
fails.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, no. You go ahead, buddy.
Well, I was just gonna say because she is a descendant of her mom and knows how that
Right.
supercomputer works. That
Right.
is that is basically her mom.
Yeah.
Like makes sense. Keep her
I mean,
close.
she straight up refers to it as her mom.
Yeah. Is that like
They do.
episode 9 that she
Yeah.
reveals that?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if it's episode 9, but it is revealed.
Yeah.
I think so. She fails at killing Gendo, and then there's a part where they cut out the audio halfway through their conversation, and it's just
Yes.
silence. Do we have any idea what Gendo says to her?
Honestly, I have no idea. There was a part of me that thought about Googling it, but I don't know how anyone would know, you know?
I mean, yeah, you wouldn't. Maybe somebody will comment and tell us, but it's just so fascinating. What a decision to do that. What a decision to have them at like the climactic moment of their talk and then just dramatically like cut the audio and then
Yeah.
kill her off. It's like
I
powerful.
So I just did a quick little search.
Okay.
And the fan consensus seems to be that he says, "I needed you," before shooting her. Like, which I think again just plays into the whole ethos behind all of his actions. It's not a want; he needs them.
Yeah, she's a pawn in his game.
Yeah. So what did you think? I mean, I will say it is interesting how, even in an attempt to kind of to finally put her foot down and thwart Gendo, that her mom is the one that stops her, prevents her from blowing it all up.
I know.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't know what to think about that. That's insane.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, man. It's just people are so wrapped around Gendo's finger so deep, and it's like I don't know what to think about that.
One thing. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. It's just devastating to Ritsuko, and it's like one of the last things that she endures in her life. It's really sad for her.
Yeah, I like. In my mind, one thing I can't help but think about is how Shinji is someone that really struggles with relationships, right? He has a significantly harder time connecting with friends and people, and just like as a whole, does not feel he's worthy of those connections. And yet his dad has no problem creating these like deep rooted connections and getting people to really like just bend to his whim, right? Like, it's just an interesting contrast, and I think serves even further to kind of really hammer home that point where Yui is leaning into him, because Gendo could have easily done that with Shinji. I mean, granted, it would have been inauthentic, and I'm not here to say an inauthentic connection should be used with your son. But it is interesting that he has the capacity, and yet at every turn, cut Shinji off from that.
Yep.
I'll never understand it.
No, I agree. It's sinister. So I mean that starts to take us to the end of episode 25.
Yeah.
I think that it's at this point. Impact. Yes. It's at this point that I really feel like I am at my peak frustration as a viewer with Shinji not getting in the fucking mech. As cliche as that is.
Yeah. Well, he is in the mech, but it's almost as if he's not.
Well, he's just like... It's just still annoying, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's intentionally so, but it's just like, man, it's really hard to watch someone that's like your teammate, someone that's counted on you, someone that's been through a lot with you, being mercilessly or unmercifully just slaughtered.
Yeah.
And they likely wouldn't be slaughtered if they had any backup. And it's just really tough to see like Rei kind of tied up with the Gendo stuff and doing her thing, and then Shinji who has just been doing nothing the entire time, still choosing to do nothing. is just like, it just rips your heart out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
I
it,
was at peak annoyance here.
yeah, well, and it only serves to, I think, further, Shinji already kind of views himself as someone that is worthless. I'm not worthy of connections or things like that. And he can't really even admit that it's his fault that Asuka died. He's just like, oh no, like she's gone. Oh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Asuka, help me. He
Yeah.
even as he is witnessing his friend dead, he can't even stop for a second to say, oh my God, like Asuka, no, like, or mourn or grieve or anything. It's just help me, help me, help me. It's very,
Yeah.
very inward, inward language and inward thinking, which
Yeah.
is just prevalent from kind of the jump of the movie,
Agreed.
which I think kind of carries us into that through line, because following that scene, we get to watch Shinji strung up like, hitting a T pose in the sky, by, because the Lance of Longinus shoots down. Ray emerges as a giant white being.
Yeah.
There's a lot that happens in the
There's
span of
so much
like
to
5
unpack.
minutes.
It really like, dude, the first episode is basically like, okay, let's kill all the women, and then let's basically just watch Shinji be depressed, and then finally he gets in the mech, he collects Asuka's remains, and then screams. And that's basically the entire episode.
Yeah.
And then it just hits you like, it's like hardly, you could boil that down to 5 minutes if they wanted to. And then they just absolutely hit you fast and loose in the beginning of 26. And then they end it with like a lot of really like long shots and really drawn out stuff. It's kind of interesting how they pace these episodes.
Yeah.
Speaking of pacing, because they're not, it's like a movie, but it's not. What is up with the credits? They're like fun credits though, because even the end credits aren't like that. They're like kind of like twisty credits.
Yeah, I honestly think it was just an artistic choice. I think that they knew End of Evangelion was going to be this kind of reimagining of episodes 25 and 26. And I think that as a whole, the end goal of that was to, fully embrace what that would look like. And I think that looks like what we saw. The fun, funky credits as Shinji is screaming in the sky.
I know.
as the text is doing like a little swirl. Like, I don't know. It's like someone popping a confetti thing at a funeral. Like, just a complete mismatch.
So I really only have like a few. I had a lot of notes on the first episode. I really don't have a ton on the second because it's just all so much like abstract shit. It's all pretty high level like understanding of what's going on in the world, and I felt a little bit lost.
Yeah,
I did feel like this. See, this is part of, you're talking about like the white Ray figure.
yeah.
This is where I did feel like part of it is like the nudity stuff sort of weird here.
Yeah.
Like it didn't have to be like that. But it's like it's not, it's like in your face. Like a lot. And
Yeah.
I didn't really know, it's another one of those like, is this weird? I don't know. They're definitely not being sexy with it. It's just like, it's just sort of existing there.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, it's basically the juxtaposition of this ethereal, godlike angel being, except it's just a giant 14-year-old who's naked. Like the whole symbolism behind it of Ray combining with Lilith is meant to be kind of like, this is the catalyst. This is what kicks it off, because
Right.
Adam is located in Gendo, and that's why he gets killed. But as a whole,
Yeah.
it's, you know, that mixture is supposed to be like, oh, third impact, beginning of the Human Instrumentality Project, you know, all that good stuff. And then just giant Ray.
That whole scene of Giant Ray coming to be with Adam or whoever falling down from the cross and everything, like all the like
Lilith is the one on the cross.
Thank you, Lilith. Thank you. Like all of that sort of religious symbolism and everything is very cool. Like they do a really good job with all of that kind of stuff. It was cool to see that. I might be jumping ahead a little bit, so we can always come back. But I did think like there was this moment where they ask Shinji to he starts to think introspectively, and he has this like flashback to where it's almost like he's on camera, because they show like he's like down the barrel of some cameras, but it's like this childhood flashback of him like playing in a sandbox kind of thing. And it is so interesting and different. Like they put this like static filter over the whole thing where it all kind of looks kind of grainy, and you're kind of like squinting your eyes like trying to find detail. They keep showing like the swing set moving in the sunlight, and like they kind of zoom out, and it's like, is it sunlight or is it just like the camera lights? And then it's like they also have that kind of like record, like vinyl record audio going in the background, where like the audio is kind of like old school record, where like it kind of skips and pops and things. It's just those types of artistic decisions are what like separate this show in my mind. Not that I've seen many, or really more than two, but it's kind of like, you know, like they don't have to put that much detail in. Like they don't have to make the whole thing appear this very like nostalgic, old-timey, staticky to show that it's a flashback. They could have done it in black and white, or they could have done, you know, or they could have done nothing and just showed him as a kid, and then it would have been fine. But like they chose to do that. I don't know. I really appreciated that. The symbolism of all of that kind of stuff, like this is where it starts to kind of, it's a little bit lost on me.
Yeah. That scene, just to kind of go back to that first one you mentioned of Shinji in the sandbox.
Yeah.
You know, the framing of that is great. You know, the sandbox is in the shape of a pyramid. The sandcastle he's building is the shape of the nerve building, the pyramid. But at the start of that scene, you know, he has two friends with him, and they all are building it together. And then a voice calls the other two away, and he's by himself. And so we've mentioned a lot in this movie that Shinji is rejecting everything: outstretched hands, support, connections, relationships. At every turn, he's rejecting it. And so what does he do as soon as he finishes building Nerve? He stamps it down. He rejects it. Because, again, another source of a piece of his life in which he could derive meaning. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want meaning from that. It's not his meaning. It's his dad's, you know. There's so many reasons under the sun that he could reject it. And yet, he stamps it out. And I love that scene just because
really good.
Well, it plays so well to not just kind of like the mentality that Shinji in this movie explicitly is kind of following, but just the way they use camera shots. I mean, this is kind of beating you over the head symbolism-wise of, oh, it's a pyramid, and, you know, look at all the... And, I mean, another thing is look at all of these swings at the park, but there's only one kid there. You know, it's just kind of that isolation. And in that isolation, Shinji rejects everything, even himself. And so I love that you mentioned that scene. I had written specific notes about it just because I think that it's so cool that they intentionally kind of take a turn and focus on that, because it really is where, like you said, things start to get really introspective. And kind of similar to how episode 25 and 26 in the show followed that pacing of, all right, here's the third impact. Let's start talking to the imaginary figures in your brain.
Yep.
To have it start this way, I think was really powerful.
Okay, that clears up a lot of that. That is a very profound scene. I mean, yeah, that's really great. So as they start getting turned into human souls, I guess, or as they start turning into souls, like the third impact happens, right? They're all changing. They all turn into like orange goo.
Yeah, LCL.
And yeah, that was my question so the LCL fluid that they've been using the whole show, are we to interpret that like somehow that is how they gained that fluid? Or
well, I mean, yeah, the way that it's like described is when they initially introduce it, that's how the Eva pilots are able to mentally link with their Evangelion unit. Well, when everyone is LCL, humanity becomes essentially one large consciousness. And so that in turn is what allows everyone to be linked or is what allows for everyone to be linked together and understand one another. So when there's that scene of the giant, green crosses shooting across the planet and everyone's screaming because they're getting turned into goo, that's, Nerve created that, but it was through experimentation. And I think they were able to ascertain it either from the implementation of Yui's soul into Eva Unit 1 and Ray's mom's soul into Eva Unit 2. There's probably someone out there that has maybe done a deep dive on it. That's just kind of conjecture. I know what LCL stands for, more so serves as a plot device or kind of the element that it's used as a part of the third impact, but I'm not too specifically sure about how it exactly came to be. I just know it's a part of that process.
Yeah, no, I think that exactly what you just said is what makes sense to me. That's kind of how I interpreted it. They don't flat out say it. You just kind of are supposed to put that together. There's just a lot of crazy stuff that happens here. I mean, they go from Earth to space. Like I said, we've got the literal forehead vagina that comes out of nowhere that gets stabbed
with a cross.
With a cross. It's just like
it's a lot of imagery.
It's a lot of imagery. It's moments like that happen where I start thinking maybe the television ending isn't so bad. Because like they're almost giving you the flip of a coin.
Yeah.
Like they're giving you like the bad ending, but it was really badass how we got there.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant at the beginning, where it's like they're kind of giving you everything you thought you wanted and proving a point that isn't our original version kind of like
better.
The right one.
Yeah. And don't you feel better watching the other one?
And I don't know that I felt that same way the first time I watched this. I think the first time I watched this, I was so pissed off at how they ended the show that I was kind of like, dude, anything is better than how they ended it. I'm in.
Yeah.
And now watching it a little bit removed from it, I feel like I don't know how I feel. I still feel confident in my rating of a 3 for the last episode at the time. That is a good rating for me at the time. I stand by it. But I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few more things I guess for us to cover before I really start thinking that way, but
yeah, no, and
it is just it's at this point in the movie where I'm starting to feel like, okay, what What did I do to deserve this?
Yeah. Why do I feel like I'm being punished here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that kind of serves as a good segue into the next little bit then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so following kind of the various imagery you just described, we then kind of jump right back into the introspection with
Yeah.
Shinji, Misato, Asuka, and Rei. Um, all of which are characters that uh, Shinji has varying relationships and connections with, and all have different kind of perspectives to provide Shinji with. Um, you know, Rei, just to kind of rewind here, when Rei kind of takes the shape, just to provide a little context to that, after merging with Lilith, she basically is giving Shinji the choice. And this happens both in the TV version and in this movie version. She is giving Shinji the choice to either accept, kind of accept himself and accept humanity and better understand one another, which in turn allows for kind of the ending we saw in the show. Kind of like that scene where it was like they were living just a regular life. That was Shinji kind of seeing what his life could be like if he accepted himself and was able to form, bonds with others without getting in his own way. And the congratulations at the end is his realization of that, and kind of the end of the Human Instrumentality Project. Then it's assumed things go back to normal. So Rei is kind of giving him that same choice here. And she does it in both instances because she cares for Shinji. Shinji is the first person that did not view her as a tool or a means to an end, which is what Gendo did, which we see kind of play out in real time with his demise and that whole scene. But just to kind of give a little bit of context into kind of what this next little bit represents is, in the same way that Shinji was challenged by all of these differing perspectives and insights by the cast, and it ultimately led to him accepting himself. We see the same thing happening here, except it just pushes that wedge further and further down, away from others, to a point where he just completely outright rejects everything. Not to kind of hit a whole summary on it, but I just wanted to provide that, as I think it's really important to kind of figure out why Shinji, why is he the one that's entrusted with this monumental decision, and why is it being thrust upon someone who has such insecurity in himself and others and the bonds that he has with others. And I think it's a really great vehicle for understanding kind of the two endings and how they exist, and how we as people are kind of always kind of teetering that fork in the road, right? I think a lot of people could relate to it, where you're one step away from going down a path that's maybe just not the best, but it's you arrived there, via setbacks or being let down or not being able to form community or friendships or whatever. I just think it's so cool to kind of see in both versions of this, ending via the movie and ending via the show, how self-acceptance and self-growth and self-love can really be guiding forces, either negatively or positively. So just as we kind of talk through this next bit, something to think about if you're listening along. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, Spence, just to maybe give some contextualization. So I realized that was a lot, but I hope that helped.
That definitely helped me.
But anyways, so we're back in Masato's apartment with her bedroom.
Yeah. I always feel more comfortable there.
Mm-hmm.
It's another one of those like scenes in this movie that's sort of like this is the warning before the movie starts of
Yeah.
like it's these types of scenes that they throw in your face that even when it's like an off-camera sex scene, it's not even like over sexualized, and yet it's happening right there. But the way they're using it is like this movie's just crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
and like everything about that little sex scene was earned. All the lines of dialogue were well thought out. It's
Hmm.
perfectly like describes Masato's character. I love that. I think it's Asuka jumps in is like bullshit.
Yeah.
They're just doing that because they're fucking horny or whatever. That's not what she says, but it's
Yeah.
like,
Well, and it's
you
after
know,
Masato's like, this is how I connect. Like, this is how I
yeah, like
form
connections.
relationships.
Yes, exactly. Connections
And
are important, and like we're human, and this is how we. Yeah,
well,
no.
and more importantly, that's how, due to her past trauma, that is how she has only really ever been able to form those connections. And so it is interesting. Like, you think about the framing of that and then the kiss that she gives to Shinji after her big speech that, like you said, fell kind of on deaf ears. What is her last attempt? Kissing him. And
Yeah.
like, and if, and he rejected her form of connection in that way.
Yes.
Um, And so, yeah, I mean, speaking of Asuka, we roll kind of right into the real heavy hitting part of this whole introspective scene. I think in the original show, the back and forth that happens between Shinji and Asuka is really great. I think that they she really lays into him, but you kind of get this sense that in her own way, she really cares for Shinji. She's always looking out for him, um, in a sense that she struggles with sense of self, sense of identity, and can kind of relate to that in Shinji. And I think throughout the show, as they become closer and bond, she starts to take issue with like, why are you struggling? You're surrounded by all of these things I wish I had. Pull your head out of your ass. Like, that's kind of her ethos in how she facilitates that discussion. Whereas in this ending via the movie, it is ruthless. She
Right.
she is like, I am a perverse figure in your mind. I am nothing more than an object for you to jack off to. I am
Yeah. Yep.
I am someone that you sexualize. You don't view me as a person. You only view me as an outlet for your own desire. And what does Shinji do amongst all of that? He strangles her.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there's more of a back and forth with the whole coffee pot, like her shoving him over, uh, and kind of just the back and forth they have where he's like, no, I'm not, and then she's like, I know what you did at the hospital. And like, just this kind of buildup to ultimately where in the show he is kind of admittedly she does not deride him in the show as much as she does here, but I think that's such the difference, right? Where or
Yes.
that kind of is the difference. Where in the show he started to become open. Admittedly, it took time and people really kind of explaining to him how they care for him and what they love about him. Whereas in this, at every turn, he rejects. He left Asuka to die while also calling out for her to save him. But because he refused to save himself. And so when Asuka says, like, I'm an object, I am not a person to you, I am not anything that you care for, rather than admit it, he's like, no, you're wrong, and just strangles her. And the sequence of events that kind of follows after that is a bit of a whirlwind. But I mean, what were your takeaways from that? I feel like I have been sipping
Yeah.
my yap juice, and
No.
I apologize if I've commanded the combo.
Oh,
But
you
I
didn't.
really love this ending and how they handle it.
Yeah, I think it's all stuff that needed to be said. It's like it's kind of like they give you, you know how at the end of the, you know how they had that really weird scene at the end of the final episode where they decide to like cut you into this like alternate universe slice of life where everyone's funny and just making sex jokes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they did that here again, except you didn't get to have fun with it anymore. And like, so they brought you back to that point, except
Yeah.
like everything's too messed up now. And
Mhm.
like he's too far gone now. Like he's really struggling to recover. He's not going to get what he wants. He's gotten to the point that he's like willing to ask for help, but he can't get any. And he's just at his absolute wit's end beyond any imagination.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to see his character like that
Mhm.
because like I said it a million times during our run of HiroBabble, and you did too. Like, it's fascinating how this show really is about the characters so much more than it is about the mechs and
Yeah.
and like the human whatever, where they turn to LCL and become one soul and all that kind of stuff matters, but like it doesn't really matter. Like what matters is like the characters.
Mhm.
But the characters don't matter on their own until they made them matter, like through the story of the mechs and everything. Like they found themselves through like their parents and the mechs or their parents and the magi, or like all these different things where like the characters are so strong in this show. Like they did so well in their character building. And yet like the characters within that universe, they just don't spend much time building each other. And like then you have a character like Masato that shows how she does like human interactions and like how she has success with that. But like Shinji's kind of like he's too shy for that. And like he has all these people that are showing him constantly like, dude, why don't you just do this? And he can't. And then he finally gets to that point where it's kind of like just shut the fuck up. Like
Mhm.
I'm my own person and I can't do what you want me to do. Please stop telling me how to live my own life.
Yeah.
It's sad to watch. It was honestly kind of hard to watch because we also love Asuka as a character through all her faults, and I
Yeah.
think it was difficult to watch. Um, it was hard enough to watch the first time. Watching it the second time was even more difficult down the road a little bit in the episode. But
Yeah.
yeah, I really think like it was smart of them to kind of give you, hey, remember how we did that fun thing at the end of the last episode? Well, we're gonna do that again, but we're gonna remind you why you should have liked that one more.
Mhm.
I yeah, yeah, I don't know what else to say on it. It was just depressing through and through.
Yeah.
It was good to
It's a
see
tough
Pen Pen
watch.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of sad though that Pen's just kind of watching that from the sidelines.
Yeah, he deserved better, didn't he?
He sure did. He sure did.
He needed like a long lost mom in a mech that he
Yeah.
could, you know.
I did some googling kind of on uh why Pen is there, like kind of what Pen represents, and
Yep.
I've seen some fans or people kind of speculate that he represents kind of like a pure goodness,
Uh-huh.
like an unencumbered, untainted kind of like, I don't know if the term wholesome is maybe the correct term, but that was kind of how I saw it best described. And so just watching him watching that and kind of just witnessing like two people that he had seen throughout the show like grow close to one another and like pal around with him, turned to that. I Hearing it in that framing, I was like, oh, that that sucks even more. I But then again, who knows? He could just be a penguin, and I'm fine with that. Doesn't need to be anything more.
Yeah, I guess we're looking for meaning here in the penguin, but I do think that he does. I like the pure happiness idea.
Yeah.
So I guess all that's really left is the beach scene.
Yeah.
Which is,
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of similar ending. I think I like all the introspective stuff in this one. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, did we talk about when Rei and Karu show up as like? Does that happen before the beach scene?
Yeah, the beach scene's the last scene.
Got it. I forget what I was going to say about that, but I wish I would have written down the specific dialogue there a little bit better.
That's what I was saying. Like some of that stuff kind of went over my head a little bit. I don't know if it's just a little bit too much time from the source material the first time through. But regardless, it is a lot to unpack in this movie. I sometimes I struggled to really grasp like the deeper meaning behind certain things because these writers, they really do put Easter eggs in on everything and meaning behind everything. So,
yeah,
what were your thoughts on it?
Well, I did some research just kind of on what Rei and Karu represent, and I saw a lot of people saying they kind of represent to Shinji like hope and faith.
Okay.
Hope being Rei. In part, Rei reminding him of his mom. He is someone that like cares for her, and like is kind of someone that kind of from the start you think they might form a connection, but
Absolutely.
It just never really lands. But there's the hopefulness that they could. And then Karu, I think with faith is kind of faith in oneself. He's almost kind of like the anti-Shinji a little bit, where he's very self-confident, sure of himself, carries himself well, and is very transparent kind of in his expressing of feeling towards others. And I think we see it in the show where, the relationship that those two form is really interesting because it right off the bat, Shinji, I think, views Karu as someone that sees value in him. And it's like the hope of making that connection is like crack. And so I think it's really interesting seeing Rei and Karu there kind of as like a last little flash before the beach, and it just is such a bummer that even those two can't pull him out kind of where he's at, because he's already committed to kind of resigning in that feeling of self-doubt, unworthiness, and what have you.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, no, that is a great way of thinking of that. Thanks for running through that, because like I said, sometimes I struggle to figure out exactly what they were going for on some of this. So it's nice to debrief it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that beach scene, so just to give a little context. So during that scene where Rei and Karu are talking to him, Shinji decides to end the human instrumentality project. So mankind does not, become better by understanding one another. They just float in a sea of LCL, and the human soul in that state is able to materialize should it choose to. So Shinji and Asuka materializing on that beach is actually them. Like, it's them alive, because they've both willed themselves into existence, as any human could. Granted, the world is fucked now, but it says a lot that even though they've both willed themselves back, Shinji continues to reject. And I think Asuka saying pathetic is so great, because at the end of the day, the rejection of oneself and the rejection of others, all for self-service and selfish intent and action, is pathetic. And Shinji in that state is pathetic.
Yeah, he's pathetic in this entire movie, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, dude, you're right. That is such a way to end this. And that's where like you're saying like it is good, like it's well written,
Yeah.
but like that is not the way you want your character to go out. And that's like the exact thing that I'm talking about where it's like for me, I mean, look, I am a huge hater of the last episode of Evangelion. I'm a known hater having watched it once. My notes that I'm looking at here from that time say all caps at the bottom, this show shit the bed. And and then I look at I was thinking about that because I had my notebook open while I was watching this today. And it's like really like that ending, her basically calling him pathetic and then it just cutting to credits
Mm-hmm.
is it's just hard.
Yeah.
It is hard, dude. And it's kind of it just once again reminds you like, hey, there was kind of that one that was really introspective, anticlimactic, and weird. And it
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of kind of faults, but it also like gave depth to the characters and like provided a somewhat hopeful ending, even if it wasn't the one you wanted.
Yeah.
This kind of gave you the movie you wanted, but not really the ending you wanted for those characters or for humanity or for any of us. But it did so in a way that was like bombastic and polarizing and crazy. And I don't know, I like it's that ending is so good. You're so right. But it's just like I don't know that it made me like I don't know that it made me enjoy the movie more because it's just such an anti-ending. It's like it's the ending of all endings, but it's also like a middle finger, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah. It really is. And I think that that's ultimately what End of Evangelion is. It's kind of like, okay, if you want an ending that isn't congratulations, here's the inverse of that.
yeah, like he can't even die right. It's just like everything he does sucks.
Yeah,
You
amen to
know,
that.
it's just so hard for to be him. So I man, like I said, I think when I watched this with you 3 years ago, I was so happy that this was not that this was far away from the final episode that I was just like taking anything. And this time watching it, I was in shock how depressing this movie is.
Yeah,
I think that there's a lot of things I loved about this movie. They really like take their time with scenes. Like they'll give them room to breathe. They don't rush anything. They take these shots where they will just show like a reflection in the water for 9 seconds, 10 seconds, and it's like, and you just kind of hear something in the background, or so maybe there's a conversation, but they're looking at like a bird, or they'll just do these things that are just artistic, but it kind of gives your brain a second to like think.
yeah,
And they aren't afraid of that. Like they'll do that. They'll do time where they're showing you something visually, but they'll cut out the audio, or they'll do something where they'll show you something visually, and the audio will just be like a bird making a noise.
yeah.
And
Or
they
they'll
they
sometimes just cut to like actual real life footage of Japan.
yeah they aren't afraid to just do them, and that kind of stuff's awesome. This movie is visually absolutely stunning. Just so many amazing visuals in this. I thought like at least on my end, like all the voice acting and everything was really cool.
Agreed. Yeah,
It sounded great. And I really have no issues with like the movie logistically, sound design, art, anything.
yeah.
I really struggled with some of the just off-putting nature of the movie. I almost think I was
Mhm.
a little far removed from it to then come back into it, having to be reminded of how it all was earned and how it's not over sexualizing. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of nudity and sexual themes, masturbation. There's a lot of, just serious death in the movie, like poignant death that literally stares you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as easy to watch as like Shinji in a sketchbook. So
Yeah.
I think that at times I really was torn. Like I almost feel like I know in my heart of hearts that I like this better, but I almost don't. I think that I prefer to live in a world where episode 24 happens and we never get anything else. Completely open-ended show, and we just finish with episode 24. I'm glad this movie exists because some of the character fleshing out, some of those moments, like Masato's final moment with Shinji, is worth it for this movie alone.
Absolutely.
Ritsuko's moment with Gendo that or Ritsuko's moment with Gendo that like doesn't work out. That plot twist is worth it. Like there's so many artistic things, character things that happen here. The connection of like the human souls being the LCL fluid is something that is really cool, and it's almost worth watching the entire show again with that context.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of good that they do here. But I don't know that I like loved it as much as I desperately wanted to love it.
Yeah.
I recognize, similar to the last episodes, I recognize their value and I recognize that they're good. I recognize that this movie's awesome. I think if I had to give this movie a rating out of 10 mechs, I would give this movie 6.5 mechs.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's really just because it was hard for me to find true enjoyment in it because of the nature of the movie. It's less so because of the quality of the movie. I think that rating mostly comes from my enjoyment factor rather than the quality factor. I do think this is a very high quality movie, similar to the fact that I really respect how they did the last 2 episodes of the main show, season 1 of the show. I just didn't like them. Kind of the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. Like I find myself, I just didn't really like either of the endings for this show. And that doesn't mean the show's bad, and it doesn't mean that the last episodes are bad or this movie's bad. I just didn't find that much enjoyment from it, but I also look at the movie and I don't know that it wanted you to.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with it, Fern. 6.5 mechs for me.
I think
End of Evangelion.
that's a great kind of summation or summizing, I think, of a lot of what the movie really represents. It isn't a feel-good movie. It's not the ending of the TV show where you're feeling happy for the characters because they've all overcome their trauma. I will say, I think, and maybe it's a cop out, but I would probably give this movie just on artistic merit and kind of what it does in terms of offering a inverse perspective from the show. I would probably give it an 8 out of 10 max. I think it's bold. Yeah. I think it's really great because I can't think of many pieces of media where you are confronted with kind of the worst nature of these characters that you up until that point had been rooting for. And so how do you reckon that, right? How do you look at these characters and watch them kind of continually fall down the well, so to speak, when you so desperately want them to catch themselves? So overall, I agree with everything that you said. I think it's a gorgeous movie. I think it holds up by all accounts today. It's an important piece of media, and I think is a really great, just a great piece of media to exist. And I think it's going to be really interesting to hear your thoughts kind of as we navigate through the rebuild movies.
So those are like a fresh start, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a reimagining, retelling of Evangelion.
I'm
And
excited for that.
yeah, and so it'll be really great to kind of, once we get to the end of this, admittedly close to 4-year journey, uh,
Yeah.
to really look back on the variations and the different avenues that Hideaki Anno has taken in portraying his vision. So yeah,
So let me ask you this.
yeah.
Between End of Evangelion and the end of the show, what do you prefer?
I
If you had to pick an ending, you can only pick one.
I
I
think
picked none.
yeah, I think but it's probably the ending of the original show.
Yep.
I think I said in our last episode review, episode 26, that the first time I watched it, I kind of had a similar reaction to you, where I was like, "What? What? How am I supposed to like feel about this?" And I watched the series again, probably 5-6 years after the fact, and I just remember the ending really resonating with me, where I was at, kind of in that time of life, and I think that just the overall message is a really powerful one of, if you know yourself, you can take care of yourself. And I think that there's a lot of power in that. And to see this character that is memed on and lauded as just get in the mech, Shinji, come on, fight the fucking angel. To have the ending essentially be, hey, why don't you take care of yourself? Like, I think it's so great, because as we've said, it's a mech show that's not really about the mechs. It's about the people that pilot them and that surround the mechs, the infrastructure. And as the show goes on, to have it come from this ever expansive universe that they're building and creating with Cell and the angels and Lilith and Adam and yada, 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 to then just come down to take care of yourself, I think is so special. And so I would definitely say that that's the one I prefer. But I think there's a lot of merit in having that. Having the ending of Evangelion be the alternative.
They both have a place for you.
But
if you had to pick, you'd pick the show.
Absolutely. Any day of the week.
I just, last couple things. I guess I was looking through my notes for the last episode. I was so pissed when we watched this last episode, dude. It's funny to read these. I wrote 14 minutes, 23 seconds in, the episode plot starts. And then first note, never mind, Shinji has morning wood. And then I said about the ending. Ending is Kingdom Hearts BS. Shinji hates himself. In other news, water is wet. This show shit the bed. Could have been done in 6 episodes.
Oh man, I'm
ruthless.
That is brutal. I mean, but hey, that's a 3 out of 10 rating.
I need to do now, I need to watch that again. I need to watch the last 2 episodes again now and see what I think.
I think that would be really interesting. If you want to do that in the next,
I'll do that
episode of the pod, we can kind of circle back and get your thoughts on it.
Before we get into the meat, we'll circle back.
Sounds great.
Well, what do you think? Should we reveal what kind of stuff we have coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've made it through this 2-hour 2-hour comeback episode, we've got a lot of exciting stuff on the pipeline. Do you want to kind of kick it off with what's up next? Yeah,
I can't remember the exact subtitles for the movies, but I did go in 4DX theaters with Fernie Mac and watch 2 Gurren Lagann movies to get kind of some new mech stuff.
Yeah, the first movie is Childhood's End, and the second one is All the Lights in the Sky Are Stars. It was a part of their 15th anniversary of the Gurren Lagann series, and as Spencer said, it was 4DX, so you get thrown around in your chair, water sprayed at you, fans blowing on all sides, your seat will poke you in the back. it's kind of nuts, but what a fun way to see that movie. If anyone has seen that series, you already know full well we were getting tossed around like salad.
Yeah, we were. That'll likely be maybe the next thing we put out, just because it's fresh on my mind. But yeah, we might do that, and so that'll be exciting to kind of compare. Now I've seen two animes. I haven't seen that show, just the movies, but kind of compare mech genre animes there. And then some other stuff. So we did, Fernie, is the poll still live on the Facebook, or is the poll closed?
It is. I mean, I think the site I used is likely closed.
Okay.
But I also think that we've got a TikTok now, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram. I might run kind of several different polls and just kind of see, test the waters, kind of see what we're thinking in terms of a new series, perhaps.
Yeah. So exactly.
Yeah.
I think the game plan here is we're gonna give you guys some Gurren Lagann, compare the mech anime, and then we are going to jump into the rebuild movies. And the goal is that once we kind of put a nice bow on Evangelion, and our little offshoot of Gurren Lagann, we are gonna hop into a brand new show from the beginning, and we'll see how I like it. But we want you to decide the show. So Fernie's gonna be working on that.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and again, if you are a new listener, if you're an old listener, thanks so much for tuning back in. We very much derive a lot of joy from this. We're two really great friends, and getting to share a hobby of mine with such a close buddy is really something special. So we also hope that if you've never checked out Evangelion and you've somehow stumbled upon this, go watch the show. We've got a lot of companion podcast episodes to go along with it. If you want someone to compare thoughts with, we've got plenty, as this episode length will show you. But again, we're really excited kind of for what's next with the podcast. And I'll pass it off to you, Spence. Any closing remarks?
Yeah, it's closing remark. Just, it's been a good ride. It's good to kind of revisit this again, get back in the saddle of HiroBabble. Thank you to everybody that's listening. And just a reminder, you guys want to send us a message, we're on all the social medias. You want to send HiroBabble a message, leave us a review. We're happy to read any of that kind of stuff on the show and continue conversations with you guys. So yeah, that's all I got, Fern. You can send us home.
Awesome. Well, again, I am Fernie Mac, the guy who has seen this show before.
And I am Spencer, the guy who has seen one show now.
Yeah, and one of many to come. But this is HiroBabble. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Cool. That's just for me for the audio.
Nice.
All right.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the best we've ever done.
I am